Hi everyone and welcome to Rage Print. This is episode 11 of our chopper builds, and today I'm going to be building the periscope. Yeah, I know, I said I wasn't going to get the periscope built before Christmas. I had a bit of spare time, so it's only a few hours, and then we'll have a nice working periscope. Oh, like that. It's too much, isn't it? Yeah? Okay. I'll take it off. Okay. Merry Christmas. Okay, so we're going to start off with an LED strip. I've used these before on R2 and BB8 and all sorts of things. We only need a single LED, so just chop one off. As you can see, I chopped one off earlier. It's attached to my helping hands, which you cannot see because the camera won't focus. Anyway, it's there, believe me. So, need some solder. And my soldering iron magically appears out of nowhere. We're going to solder on the end connections. So the LED strips, the little neopixels, have three connections. There's an input, an output, and a ground and a 5V and 5V. If it's at the end of the chain, you need a little bit of solder on the end, on the copper pads on the three sections. So that's what I'm doing there, and that's the end of the chain, as in one pad, one pixel. I was really struggling with this LED strip, so I actually took it off the one that you can see that's sort of lying across the plug. You can just about, trust me, it's there. I've soldered it on. Yeah, this strip here I used on my Mario droid that you can normally see in the background of the when I'm talking to screen. Oh, we need some servo wire. Just need 3 wires. Anyway, yeah. So this has actually been stuck onto the Mario droid and peeled off because it wasn't working, and yeah, it was duff. So what I actually ended up doing, which you'll see later on in the video, you won't see it later on in the video, but you'll see that I got frustrated with it, is the first LED strip that picks up that had the wires coming out the back. I snipped one off there and used that, and that just soldered on perfectly. Worked straight away. I kind of wish I'd just done that to begin with. So that strip that's there is going to be chucked away. So you can see here I'm stripping the wires off. It's 3 wires, positive 5V, ground, and a signal. Signal is going to be my yellow. I didn't have any red. But there you go. So signal goes in the middle. I didn't have any red, so I'm using white. In my head, white is positive, black is ground. And I always use black or grey where I can for the ground. So here we are. I'm very quickly, honest, soldering on the 3 wires. So that we go. Yeah, that's the 3 wires soldered on. You can see positive, signal and ground. And I'm stripping the wires off the back because we need those later on to hook up to some power and an Arduino to check that it works. So here's me just testing the power, and I pretty much fried the LED without realising at that point, but you know, we'll get past that. So now we're actually building the periscope itself. So we need servo arm A, B and C, some M3x10 countersunk bolts, and this is rather simple. I'm just doing some pre-tapping of the screws. And you can see here, you've got that bit where the servo horn goes in. That needs to be on the inside of the servo arm. So it goes on like that. So this is rather straightforward. So we just screw it in. And then on the other side, it can only really go one way around, but there you go. Just make sure you have that little cutout on the inside. And that creates your servo arm. There you go. So try and keep it straight. I don't think it matters too much at this stage because the rest of the frame will force it into square anyway. And now we need to put a MG996R servo. I don't know why I bother doing that, because I know the camera can't see it. It just will not focus on a shiny surface or white. So we're going to center the servo to 1500. On the servo tester at least anyway. And use my incredibly good power adapter. I still haven't found the proper power adapter. I know it's somewhere. But anyway. Set it to 1500 so it's nice and so it's centered. Making sure you plug the servo in the right way around so it doesn't fry it. There we go. So now I know when we plug that into the frame that the center is where we need to go. And now we need the circular horn from that same servo. And that's going to get epoxied into there. Using my good old Gorilla 2-part epoxy. So I know I said in the intro that this is going to be out before Christmas. I was being optimistic. It took me 3 days to edit this video. And I recorded it on the 22nd. So, so after Christmas. Anyway, it's before New Year. Between Christmas, it's still 12 days of Christmas. I'm going to take that one. So anyway, we've epoxied the servo horn into the servo arm. And now we just wait. So now we're going to start building the frame itself. So this is frame A and frame B, and we're going to take an MG90, even though that doesn't say MG90 on there. So this is the servo frame itself. And you can see that there's like a cutout for the wire to exit out of. And then we use the screws that come with the servos, the self-tapping screws. And they just hold the screw into the plastic. Just like that. Wow, it really doesn't like focusing, does it? I did experiment with turning autofocus off. Didn't make it any better. But there we go. Servo is in the frame. So now we're taking... Oh no, we're going to center the servo. So center it to 1500 again. Now we take frame A and frame B. And they go together like that. And I'm just checking out the other way around because of the countersinks. And then the servo frame just slots in there and it becomes like a... Well, it's a periscope lift, so this is where the lift slides up and down. You can see there. And then that just pops on over the top. So the servo moves up and down snugly. I think this is the point I noticed there's a couple of parts where it's catching, and I think that's where I was cutting away the brim, so I just quickly file it out. Make sure that it is running smoothly. We don't want it to catch on one side halfway up and sort of tilt the servo out of kilter and, you know, forevermore be wrong. So do me some M3x10s again. And you need 5 of those and they just screw in. Yeah, one there, and then 3 across the top. And as if by magic, there we go. So 5 screws in there, and that really hurt. It took me a while to get the last 3 screws in. But as you can see, it slides up and down nicely, and as you saw there, if I let go, it drops back down, so it's running smoothly. So now we're going to put the MG996R in, and that goes there, that way around as well, so the actual servo horn connector faces towards the front of the frame. And like before, we use the screws that come with it. If I show you, there you go, the 4 screws there, and they just self-tap into the plastic again, holding the screw, holding the servo in place. Excuse me, just gonna take a drink. That's better. We're doing a bit of time skipping here, where all the screws go in. There we go. And now we're going to add the servo horn itself. Servo horn? The servo arm. It goes on there. It should be fairly self-explanatory. Obviously, with the servo horn attached to the servo arm, that then gets pushed in onto the MG996R servo. And as you can see there, I told you, I showed that you need to put a screw. The screw goes in there, and that's the screw that comes with the servo. What Mike doesn't mention on the instructions is actually putting a screw in on the other side. So that took me a bit of time to work it out, which one it should be. And I end up putting in a M3 times 12. So in the instructions that would be... No, it is a 12. It is 12. Yeah. I was thinking normally I'm using 14s instead of 15s, but no, M312, and that goes in there. And that's long enough to go through both sides of plastic, but not hit the servo itself. 10 won't be long enough, 15 will be too long. There you go. And that's now moving up and down. And of course you remember to center your servo before you put it in. So now we need another... these are M3 times 10s, I think, and they go in those holes there to attach to the servo frame holder, servo arm to the servo frame. There's a lot of servos in this word here. So he says use M315. So why did I use 8? Oh yeah, 2 washers as well. No, it just pops in there like that. Why did I use 8 when he says 15? Gee, I don't know why I did that now. So anyway, that goes in there like that. I wonder if the 15 was too long. It was gonna crush into the servo. Anyway, I honestly can't remember why I used 8s rather than 15s, but as you see there, if you move the servo arm, the servo frame goes up. So 8s is fine. Anyway, we're going to power it up and just test it. So bear in mind, as I have it at the moment, the center is the bottom. When I reread the PDF, which I have in front of me now, it actually says that the center of the servo should be the center of the frame. Here you go. So I undo the frame. Actually, unplug it, and I move it to the center. So now 1500, the center of the servo, is halfway up the frame, which means that when you go to 800, which is the lower end, it goes all the way down to the bottom. 2200 goes all the way to the top. Bear in mind these numbers on the servo test, and they're actually slightly different on Arduino code. So here we go. So 1500 is the middle, and 22 still not quite enough to get to the top. So I think I show it. Yes, I do. Can't remember. Did I cut this bit out? No, I didn't. Right, good. Good, didn't cut this bit out. I now set it to 2200, which is according to the servo test, is the maximum throw of the servo. And I pushed the servo frame holding the MG90 all the way to the top. So now we know that the furthest the servo can go will be the highest point that the periscope would be up. And then, because I found that 800, which was the other end, was past the bottom. So if we hook it back up again, I'm probably not explaining that very well. There you go. So the bottom, you'll probably briefly see it on the screen, is something like about 1200. which means I have plenty of place to plenty of area to play around with to get it all the way down the bottom. So that's done. And now we need to add the what do you call this bit? The inner frame. Yes, sorry, it is the inner frame. Sorry, I'm reading the PDF here. It doesn't make much sense. This is the inner frame, and that gets attached with two M3x8s, which are the same ones I used. There you go, one either side of that, the big hole. Same ones I used to attach the servo frame to the servo arm. But one there, one there. I self-tap them before I screw them all the way in. Once I finish dropping them. So I self-tap them in just so they're poking through on the other side. It means that I can lock them into place. And it doesn't matter which way around you put the inner frame because it's the same either way around. So there you go, that gets attached like that. Just tighten it up. Oh, yes. One of the holes needed drilling out slightly to 2.5mm. In fact, I did both holes in the end. It wasn't quite deep enough, nor was it wide enough for me to self-tap with a non-pointy-ended screw. Yeah, now you can tap them in. See, it took a while for it to actually even so. It took a while for it to tap into the plastic on the frame A and B. But there we go. That's the inner frame attached. And that's pretty much most of the periscope components done. We're now going to add the peri gear, which is what I'm just about to show you here, and that'll go on top of the MG90. Now, before you add it to the peri gear, you need to add that servo frame. It's a servo horn, except if I don't, I use the double-ended one. And you need to snip a bit off. So it goes in that side where I have it now. This is me trying to work out which way around it was supposed to go. So yeah, I realise that the periscope stick has to go in there, which means the servo horn has to go on the bottom. So I swap it to the double one and just chop both ends off so it fits inside. Just like that. I used the double one because I noticed there was space on the other side and I thought, okay, it will keep it in place a bit better if there's two sides to the horn. And again, just epoxy it in. There we go. So we just leave that to set, but that'll sit on top of there. So left that to set. That's now nice and dry. And it goes on that way around. So that cutout should be at the front, like that. Something to bear in mind, it would be easier to do this bit before you put the inner frame on. So if you're reading the PDF instructions, it should be the other way around. So you put the peri gear on first before you put the inner frame, which I'm now taking off to be able to get a screwdriver down to be able to get to the screw for the servo horn. I've now also lost the screw for the servo horn. There it is. Amazing how these little screws disappear. You can see there I've moved the inner frame enough for me to be able to get the screwdriver in. But it'd be much easier to do the peri gear first. So just do that back up. And there we go. We've got the peri gear with the cutout facing the front, centered to 1500. And that's done. Right, and now we're going to build the periscope. And this is where I wander away from Mike's design, and we're doing the Tim Hebel periscope mod, hence why I'm using the LED near pixel rather than a normal LED. And this is so I can program it to different colours, to different functions. Mike's works well, don't get me wrong, but it's effectively just on, off, on, off, on, off. No colour changing. Here we can do all sorts of sequences and different colours. So that's the base plate. These bits aren't really named. So you got I'm going to call this the base plate. And then we've got the middle plate, which I'm just filing down to get rid of the last bits of brim. And this has a hole cut out specifically for a LED strip, which if the camera will focus, will let you see. There you go. And then the last piece is the cover, which has 2 engraved circles on it. Which I'll put my hand over it in a second, you'll just about see. There you get 2 engraved circles. Don't cut them out. You want it like that. It's supposed to be like that. And the 3 just sandwiched together with the LED strip between the middle section cut out and the back plate. There is a right way round for the engraved circle piece. Obviously it faces outwards. But it's not centered. It's very slightly towards one edge of the piece. And as you'll see in a second, I get it the wrong way round. In fact, I get the whole thing the wrong way round. The wires should be coming out of the flat end of the back piece. There's like a filleted part. And that slots into the periscope housing, so the wire should be coming out the top when you slot this filleted piece in. And this is where me using the trash LED starts to haunt me. So I'm just filing it all flat, make sure that will actually go in, sit flush. So you can see there's like a filleted bit at the top of my hand. And I've put the engraved circles so they'll be nearer the top as it goes in. And that is wrong. The engraved circle should be nearer the bottom, because if I put my hand over it now, see, the engraved circles are too far to the top. And then you have the joy of trying to get that bit out, which is really tight. It is really, there's no tolerance there at all. Once it's in, it's supposed to be staying in. Unless you use brute force and ignorance to pop it back out again. So it is possible with a, you can just sort of twist, you can just sort of pop it out almost with a I used the bore drill, and then gave me enough to pull it out with the pliers. And then when I yanked it out, I broke the signal wire, so I had to solder that back on. So we and of course by doing that I forgot which way around things need to be. So we hook it all back up, pop it all in. Detangle the wires. And would you believe I put it in the wrong way again? So the engraved double circle should be closer to the filleted end at the bottom, not to the top. So that when it comes into the periscope, that's what it looks like when it finally goes in. So that should be flat. The engraved double circle will be in the middle. So that needs to be closer to the filleted ramp bit. So now we have the lenses. I printed both lenses out. I'm not quite sure why I did that. So the one that's in now is just a normal one that's similar to what Mike designed. So it's just letting the light shine through. The other one that's just a circle is designed for a 20mm cabochon. I haven't yet decided which one I'm going to do, so I haven't glued it in. But yeah, that's just the default lens, and to be honest, I might just keep that. So it's your choice. You can either have the cabochon lens or the lens. So I'm probably going to use that lens for now. And that just sit on there, and when I'm ready I'll glue it in. But I'll let the light through. As you can see there where I'm popping that on, there should be a cabochon there. And I said that'd be a 20mm cabochon. Right, so now we've got the periscope built, or the main periscope built. Just remember to turn that off. Just flattening that out. And trying to bash that as flat as possible because I didn't sand the filleted parts properly. So now we're just checking that the top piece actually goes on flat. And this is the what do you call it? What do you call it? Periscope stick. I'm going to call it a periscope stick. It's the centre part of the post centre. There we go. Periscope post. Anyway, that should go down through the centre of the inner frame and into the peri gear. And we're just going to hook up the servos and check that it moves okay. Just gets going. And you can see here, the issue is I've over tightened the two screws on the MG90. So now we'll try it again. It's now quite happily moving. So we put the centre post back in, slide it into the peri gear, and apart from the fact it's getting stuck, because it's definitely put it back down, it's working fine. So give it a good sand just to smooth it out because it was catching on the inner hole of the inner frame. Because about halfway at the post there's like a bulge where the 3D printer just decided to, I don't know, randomly add an extra wall or something. Anyway, it bulged very slightly. So you can see here it's now sliding up and down quite nicely. Until obviously it gets stuck, so nothing holding in place. So we slide the wires from the periscope down into it. And they go in there like that. And I just realised that I'd broken the negative wire this time. So anyway, soldered it back in. And I've hooked it to an Arduino. And I put a sketch on there. It's just very simply going to make it blink blue. Which, there you go. On, off, on, off. On, off. Proves the LED's working, proves the signal's working, proves the 5 volt and the ground's working. That's fine. That's all I needed. So there's what else I'm testing it. So I'm just going to disconnect the Arduino. I use the wire lugs for now. I haven't trimmed any servo cables yet because I don't know how long the wiring needs to be. Just going to use some plastic weld. I'm going to weld the post to the periscope, being very careful not to get any of the plastic welds on the wires because it will melt the casing. So the wire should come out there. There should be a cutout faces forward to the periscope, and there's run a bit of EMA plastic weld around there. As I said, if it touches the wires, it's going to melt the wire. You're screwed. So just some bit of filament. Using blacks so both I can see what I'm doing and you can see what I'm doing. just cut a bit off and poke it into the holes at the top. Let the lens fall out. So yeah, just pokes in like that. I actually do it in an easier way in a minute. Yeah, just poke it in, and you need 4 of those. So 1 in each corner. And then that should line up. This is where I break it and find doing the easier way anyway. And then the filament goes in on the corresponding side on the cap. Or top plate, as Mike calls it. And this is the point, and this is the bit that sits out on the top of Chopper's dome level. The printer's not given me made enough space to get the filament in. So in the end, I get just a small screw and just self-tap it slightly so it becomes a little wider to get the filament through. It only needs to be a little bit. So now what I do is I push the filament all the way down so that it hits resistance, snip a bit off so there's about 1 mil, 2 mil sticking out the side. Doesn't need to be much. That's what, 2 mil, if that. It's just enough so it locates to the holes there, which I've tapped with that screwdriver, with that screw. Only a little bit. 1 turn's enough. That lines up. Now, bear in mind, you're going to glue this down. So don't glue it down until you're happy that the LED is working. You don't need to get back in there. Or that you don't want to paint it separately. I'm going to make life harder for myself. I'm going to glue it down, and then I'm going to paint the whole thing together with massive bits off. Because, yeah, why not? Let's make my life harder. But same as before, just glue it down with some EMA. I'm still not gluing the lens down because I haven't decided whether I'm going to do the cabestron yet or just normal lens cap. So now we feed the wires through that centre hole. Yeah, through that. And this is why I haven't cut the wires. I don't know how long I need them yet. I don't know where the maestro is going to be. And then the centre post just slides into the inner frame. And then just pull the wires out of the way very gently. I should also mention by this point I've swapped to the other LED. I've cut it off and replaced with the LED. So the wires now come out come through that cutout on the Peri gear. Yeah, this is actually the next day I've replaced the LED completely. I've had enough of it breaking, so I've replaced it. It's soldered on fine, it's a lot stronger. And I haven't fried it by sending 5 volts through it with no signal. Yeah, so you can see there, the top of the cap sits flush with, or sits on top of the inner frame. There you go, and then you just put 2 small screws into there, and M3 times 10. Just 2 of them, 1 on each side. I reckon you probably could get away with 8s. It only needs to hold the Peri gear, the centre post in place. It's almost acting like grub screws. So you could actually use the grub screws that were used to build most of the frame. I think that would probably work as well. That one's a pain to get to. That was an absolute pain to get to. Anyway, so that's pretty much it done. So here I'm going to hook up both servos. I forget that when you send commands, it sends the same command to both servos, but it proves the point. The servo's moving up, and the MG90 is twisting the periscope. Oh, that's me messing around with the frequency. Shouldn't have done that. Yeah, as it moves up, in this case, it's turning the periscope with it. Is it getting the same commands? Return to center. Oh yeah, disconnected the other servo at this point so we can test that the rotation is working. And I'll reconnect my Arduino. My consistent wiring colours. back up to the power. And then I think I turned the light off here. There we go. So we have a flashing light and the servo turns. So under the maestro, that's going to make it twist left and right. And then obviously make it move up and down. So now we're going to mount the periscope into the dome. I should point out that, yes, it goes in there. I should point out that I'm going to have to remove the periscope in order to be able to get the door attachments in and the head arms. So this is, although I have mounted it in properly eventually, I'm going to have to take it back out again. So we need some, we need 4 M3 square nuts, which I think, no, I'm showing you where it's going to go. So we've got the 4 holes here, and that's it. The square nuts slide in from the outside. Those, yeah, they slide in from the outside of the hole. My arms in the way, I can't really show you. Yeah, they're going that through there. You see from the outside pushing in towards the hole. With this print of the dome, it was actually quite difficult to get the M3 nuts in, and this caused me problems later. I would also advise either drilling or self-tapping the screw holes here before you put the M3 nuts in. You'd also avoid a lot of the issues I'm getting here. Mainly I was trying to screw the screw through the periscope in a frame and into the dome, and there was nothing that was sort of pre-drilled, pre-tapped, so it's trying to start from scratch at both places. It was causing me issues. And then the square nut wasn't sat even. So these are M3 by 8s. Yeah, M3 by 8s. It's 4 of those. It's now exhausted my supply of those ones. And that sits on like that. And the orientation should be that the front of the periscope should line up roughly between those 2 eyes. I think I show you again. No, I don't show you again. Yes, I do. Yeah, so that's the front. And it should line up sort of roughly about there. Once you get the screws in for the periscope itself, you're lined up anyway, but as long as you know that the front should be facing the eyes, you're more or less in the right place. I mean, you could face it the other way around. Yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't, but... So here's me trying to get the screws in. As I said, I was having trouble getting the screws in anyway. They just were not going to screw in. They kept, I don't know if they were missing the M3 square nut or just weren't screwing through. I couldn't work it out at the time. I've since realised they needed pre-drilling or pre-tapping, and that would enable me to get the square nut in place properly. But it just wasn't screwing through, and I could quite easily just yank the periscope gear out, periscope frame out. So it's just 4 screws, one in each cardinal point. And I say they needed pre-tapping, they didn't. They just slid right in. So the inner frame wasn't the problem. It just wasn't. Yeah, it just wasn't screwing into the dome plate itself. And it's very awkward to get to. The one I'm doing now is the easiest screw to get to. The one at the back I'm doing now is a little easier, but the one at the front of the dome, you can't get your hand in, and the same with the screw that's closest to my body. It's awkward. It is very awkward. So here's me trying to self-tap the hole belatedly. So I get another countersunk screw out and just screw it in until it hits into the M3 square nut, and I know it's in the square nut at this point. And I thought, right, okay, I'll try getting out. It's stuck. The square nut has managed to cross thread. So I'm there trying to screwing away. Why is it not moving anywhere? Why is it not coming out? And all it's doing is just twisting in place. And while it's twisting in place, it's slowly breaking the plastic for the holder. It says me, I'm just screwing. Why is it not coming out? And then it just, I think this is probably about a minute. It just breaks off. Even using a pair of pliers to try and force it to turn around. Thinking maybe it's, I've rounded off the hex edge or something. And literally, all I was trying to do is just tap the plastic to get to screw in properly. And eventually, it will break. You may wonder why I left this in, and why I didn't just cut it. And actually, it's kind of a case of, I should have showed you how much trouble I had, so that when you come to do yours, this is fiddly, it's awkward, and you should definitely do it after you've put the doors in. As you can see there, it's just stuck. It's turning around and not going anywhere. There we go, and then I managed to break the plastic. There was a lot of swearing going on. So anyway, I got the square nut off. I binned that one, put a new square nut in. I binned the screw as well, so I put a new square nut in, put a bit of plastic over the top. Just put it back. Yeah. Thanks, R2. And use a bit of EMA and just effectively glue it back together. It will melt the plastic, but it'll be as good as new. And then we try again. I think also a lot of the problem I'm having getting these screws in is because I'm trying to do it to camera as well. I think if you were doing it yourself, you could turn the dome around every which way possible, hang it upside down, put it on its side, and put it over your head, whatever, to be able to get the screws in. But because I'm trying to do it to camera to show you how to do it, it's making it more awkward for myself. It's awkward anyway, because of course you're getting lovely views of my elbow. So we've got one in. Is this where I get one in? Or do I start? No, I'm still in trouble at this point. No, I did manage to start getting them in at this point, I think. You can see here, there's just no room. I think rather than having the T-bar hex-head screws like I got, either use cross-headed screws, so you can use a long screwdriver, or get a long screwdriver style hex driver. I think that might make things a lot easier, although you still got the issue of the spawn at the back with most of the servo frames in the way. I think a good revision for this may be that the holes are 90 degree, about 45 degrees offset from the frame, so that the screws are either side of the back of the frame and either side of the front of the frame. I think that might work a bit better. You can see there, it's just now using a normal Allen key to just tighten it up. It's still not tightening up, so it just pops straight back out again. So now I go through the self-tapping again, wary of the fact that I might end up ripping the screws back out again. They seem to work fine afterwards in this case. So I'm also making sure that the M3 square nut is in the right place as well when I do this. So we go, they're all lined up. We just try screwing it back in. Yeah, I think this is the point where I get them in properly. I'm just really glad I hadn't hot glued the square nuts in at this point. Otherwise I would have been really stuck. You know, without them being hot glued in, there's a bit of leeway. So yeah, that's in. Finally. So you thought it was a long time in time lapse. It's about 45 minutes just to get those 4 screws in, nearly an hour. So you can see here, the top plate is flush with the top of the dome, or flush-ish. So we're hooking up the servo connector, servo tester, sorry. And there we go. And just reconnect the power back up. I really need to find a power supply. Periscope up, periscope down. So it's not quite flush, and that's because the peri gear has a tiny bit of plastic that I didn't clean off, which means that the centre post isn't all the way down into the peri gear. 1/2 mil, that's all it is. 1/2 mil of plastic that I should have cut away, but done. Okay, that went really well. I'm ignoring how long it took me to put the screws into the dome. I don't know what happened there. I'm fairly sure the square nuts are lined up, but anyway, put it this way, it's awkward. You now know how awkward it's going to be when you do it. Public service. Sorry, that's still flashing. Sorry. So yeah, I love the design of that periscope. It's just really simple. You know, lever up, servo to turn it, lever back down, job done. As I would have mentioned in the voiceover, I did the Tim Hebel mod to the periscope, so it's using an LED strip near pixel rather than just a normal LED, and that's purely so I can control it from the Maestro. So later on, it'll be programmed that it'll, I don't know, do like a pulse flash, or yeah, you saw in the test that I did. It's just a flash on, flash on, flash on. Yeah, we can do all sorts of things that. Plus I can change the colour as well. So if I want to do something, you know, like a red alert, you know, it spins. Well, can't spin all the way around, but you know, it spins wildly. So yeah, so it's in dropper. He's sat there now. He's got it in, and you saw me testing it, moving up and down outside the dome, and I was actually surprised I didn't have to sand any of the holes or anything. It does sit a tiny bit, a little bit proud of the top of the dome. I'm not too fussed. It's Chopper. He's old. Things are breaking. Things have been repaired. It kind of adds to the character. And I think that extra height is purely from the fact of the stick that goes down into the servo, the MG90 servo, where it hits the peri gear. I didn't clear a tiny bit of plastic away. That's it. Tiny bit of plastic halfway down is stopping it sitting flush with the dome. I don't mind. As I said, adds to the character. So where does this leave us? I have literally just finished printing the door mechs, so the sliding doors on the side of his head. I think that'll be the next bit, so we'll get those in. And then we'll put the head arms in. I'm going to do it that way around because I think it'll be awkward to put the door mechs in with the arms in the way, and I'm fairly sure I'm going to take the periscope back out to put the doors in as well. So yay, more joy with those screws. I'm just trying to think there's an easy way of doing those screws. Magnets. I think the magnets will be strong enough, but the sudden jolt and that's it, they'll fall off. I suppose you could go to use a Phillips head rather than a hex head, and that way you can buy a really long screwdriver and get it in that way. That might be easier. In fact, it probably would be a lot easier. Yeah, so Dormex next. There, I said just finished printing those. I've got to clean them up a bit, and that definitely will be after Christmas. And yeah, and then that's, I think, apart from his main utility arm, I think that'll be all the main electronic main moving parts done. Yeah, I know I still want to put the doors on the side. You know, his side arms. Side doors. But I'm going to paint those separately and then put them on. So yeah, I think that's it. It's the eyes, the ladder light at the side of the dome. Those have got lights in. Oh, the antenna on the top. I mean, I could do a quick video on that. It's just 3 pieces put together and then stick it on top of the dome. In fact, I might just do a quick video of that anyway. Yeah, and I think that's all the parts done then. And then it's, I don't know whether to paint and then put the electronics in, or do the electronics then paint. Either way, when it comes to painting, chopper will have to be disassembled as much as I can. Dome can all get painted in one piece, even with the doors in place, even with the periscope lid in place, because it's all one colour. And then move the door slightly. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, all be done in one piece. The arms, yeah, they can just be unscrewed, taken out, and painted. Same with the periscope itself. That's mainly black. Just needs to like mask a little bit off for the light to show through. Yeah, I'll think on that one. So anyway, Dormex, arm mech, electronics, and paint. Either way, but we're getting there. Yeah, 8-9 months, and we're getting there. It certainly looks like Chopper. You know, every time the kids walk in, they go, "Who's that?" I have to explain who Chopper is. Not that they really get it, but yeah, I'm pleased with this. So it's a nice way to end the year, I think, with a recognisable droid with something in it. Something I will mention is that. So there was a droid builders meet in Camberley a couple of weeks ago. It's Christmas meet. Couldn't make it. I was visiting in-laws. But me and John were given one of these each for our work on LosCon. You know, helping somebody out who, you know, helping a fellow builder. Yeah, I'm really stoked by it. Yeah, I didn't expect that. You know, never intended to earn one to, you know, to helping Loz out, but so yeah, I'd just like to say thank you very much to Loz for nominating me. Thank you very much to Giles and the rest of the committee team for okaying it. And yeah, thank you. That does mean a lot. And so it hangs there right by the monitor, so I'm looking at it as I'm working. So which does remind me, we will be picking up LosCon again in the new year. Once the better weather gets here, we're going to start doing the painting. I think Loz he's flip-flopping on colour choices. He either wants to go like a all black or traditional R2, so he's kind of flip-flopping between the two. So once we've locked in the colour and the weather improves, we'll start painting. So it's going to be busy next year. Chopper finish, LosCon finish, BB-8 start, hopefully finish, and yeah, there's one other project. Yeah, nice big pile of plastic on the floor next to R2. Ignore the Iron Man helmet. Big pile of plastic there. Proton pack. Yep, 3D printed proton pack. So I'll be building that as well. Yeah, ambitious target. I was going to have it done for the premiere of Afterlife. It never happened. I hadn't even finished printing it by then. So yeah, so we've got that to look forward to as well. I think that's it. I am just rambling. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for bearing with me over this last year. I know it's been slow going. It's, you know, sometimes like a month and a half between episodes. I'm do try and get them out as often as I can. I hope you've been enjoying them, and I hope you'll join me when I keep building more stuff and start releasing more content. As I said, thank you for watching. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. If you're watching this after Christmas, I hope you had a very good Christmas, and I hope you had a very good New Year. And yeah, I'll see you in the New Year. Bye.